Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Saturday, November 22nd, 2014, around 8:31 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. It's cold out, but the temperature's going to be warming up tomorrow to about 54 degrees with a nice and sunny day with some clouds. Towards the end of the day, we could get some heavy rain and into Monday morning, where highs could shoot up to 68 degrees, and there could be a possible major snowstorm in this neck of the woods come Wednesday night and Thursday morning. We'll see about that. Some of the models are indicating a major winter storm, early winter season storm. Hope not, but we're in this weather. We're in New England, so we could be dealing with a heavy-duty snowstorm Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Let's hope it's not a white Thanksgiving. Some news to report before I get to my final video blog of the night. The Florida State Seminoles beat the Boston College Eagles by a score of 20-17. It was a hard-fought game. The Eagles had a chance to pull up the upset, and Florida State's the #1 team in the polls for college football, but BC couldn't get the job done. But that was a very competitive game. It could have went BC's way. And that's about it on that. One little note before I go. I might be switching some of the things around with like what I'm doing with the video blogs next week due to a work schedule, so there could be maybe some days only 2 video blogs or 3. Depends how I feel, because this upcoming week of work is going to be very busy, so I might be not having time to do a video blog in the morning, but I'll let you know beforehand. But there'll be some things that I might have to move up or switch around, okay? And that's about it on that. And my third and final video blog subject of the night is about a wrestling feud that happened from October 1993 to March of 1994 in the WWE. It was this feud between Macho Man Randy Savage and Crush. The background of this feud happened several months earlier on an episode of Monday Night Raw, where Crush wrestled WWE Champion Yokozuna for the WWE title on Monday Night Raw, and Crush lost to Yokozuna, and Yokozuna gave Crush 4 banzai drops. And finally, Macho Man Randy Savage, who was commentating the match with Vince McMahon and Bobby the Brain Heenan, rescued Crush, and Crush was carted off on a stretcher and was out of action for a few months to sell the injury, because they were building Yokozuna as a monster WWE champion heel. And then a few months later on Monday Night Raw, they have Vince McMahon has like Crush on the phone, and he wanted to talk to Randy Savage, and like Crush wouldn't answer. And the next week they called Crush again, and Crush was a little mad, saying Randy was turned his back on him and this and that. And afterwards, they have a summit on a live edition of Monday Night Raw in October of 1993, when Crush returns, and he brings in Mr. Fuji as its new manager. And Crush calls him Master Fuji. And Bobby the Brain Heenan's conducting an interview, and Crush was blasting Macho Man Randy Savage, say, "Why didn't you come to the rescue at all? Why didn't you call me up every single day? You only called twice." He was also saying that Master Fuji owned the hotels in his Kona Beach, Hawaii, and stuff like that, and he was to make perfect sense. And then Macho Man comes up from the broadcast booth saying, "We've all made mistakes before. You're making the biggest mistake of your life joining these Mr. Fuji and stuff." And then they kind of like shake hands, and we're going to talk it out, and they leave the ring, and Crush raises the hand of Macho Man once. I think that was a goof, because I goofed to do that, because originally it was going to be the first one he was going to raise his hand and clothesline him, so they missed this cue. so they had to do it over again. It was on live TV. Crush raises a hand to Macho Man and gives him the clothesline, and then Macho and Crush gives him a power slam onto the barricades, injuring his throat, and lacerated his tongue. That was the storyline, and then Mr. Fuji has Yokozuna come to the ring, and then they throw Macho Man into the ring. Crush does, and then Yokozuna comes up and gives the banzai drop to Macho Man Randy Savage, and then we're gonna do 3 more times, but a lot of the suits and referees rescue Macho Man. Macho Man was out of doing Monday Night Raw for a couple weeks just to sell the injury. And then on the next live edition of Monday Night Raw, which was in November, they had Crush was going to wrestle a squash match, and Macho Man was commentating. But when it was time for Crush's match, Macho Man was getting anxious to get Crush. Vince McMahon, who was announced, he says, "Come on, Randy, come on back." And he was kind of trying to calm him down. And he was trying to grab Randy Savage and stuff like that to bring him back to the broadcast booth. When they announced Crush's name, Crush to come into the ring, Macho Man throws Vince McMahon and runs right after Crush, and they beat each other up in this big fights, the suits. And the referees try to break it up, and Bobby the Brain Heenan was commentating and says, "Are you okay, Vince?" And Vince was saying Macho Man's a lunatic, Macho Man's crazy and stuff like that. This was one of the first major bumps Vince McMahon took when he was pushed down. Vince McMahon was the announcer back in those days for Monday Night Raw. And then they continue to fight all over and stuff. Crush's match doesn't happen. I think the next segment, Randy Savage comes back down. It was a match between Bob Backlund and Barry Horowitz, and then Crush comes back and they fight again with Crush and Macho Man Randy Savage. The next week on Raw, WWE President Jack Tunney suspends Macho Man Randy Savage from doing any broadcasting on Monday Night Raw. This was just this was an angle to get him to fight Crush in house shows across the country, because Randy Macho Man Savage for most of 1993 was basically announced on Monday Night Raw. He got into the ring occasionally, but he was basically just doing Monday Night Raw and voiceovers for Raw when they were being taped. And this was continued, the feud continued on Survivor Series 1993. Macho Man was on the Survivor Series team with Razor Ramon, 1-2-3 Kid, and Marty Jannetty against IRS and Big Daddy Cool Diesel, Adam Bomb, and the Model Big Cartel. And Crush interfered in that match and got Randy Savage counted out. And then during the main event match between the Foreign Fanatics, which was Yokozuna, Jacques of the Quebecers, Ludwig Forga, and Crush against the All-American team of Lex Luger and The Undertaker and the Steiners, there was more Randy Macho Man Savage interfered in Crush, causing him to be counted out of the match. So this feud was building big time. And on the house shows, it was double disqualifications or count-outs by Crush or Macho Man Randy Savage. It was a decent feud, and it intensified even more on a week before the Royal Rumble, when Randy Macho Man Savage was wrestling IRS. Crush was a guest color man on Monday Night Raw, and Randy Savage was going for the elbow. Crush interferes, and they continue to fight. This is when the last Monday Night Raw before the Royal Rumble, they had a lot of wrestlers come down and have a mini Royal Rumble fight and stuff like that. That was just to push the Royal Rumble. And then during the Royal Rumble, Crush eliminates Macho Man Randy Savage and stuff like that. So this feud is continuing to be big and stuff like that. And then when WrestleMania 10 comes around, Randy Macho Man Savage was going to wrestle Crush in a falls count anywhere match, and the stipulation was if a wrestler took a fall anywhere, they had 60 seconds to get back in the ring, or they would lose the match. But before that, a few weeks before WrestleMania, on a Monday Night Raw, Randy Macho Man Savage wrestled Yokozuna for the WWE Championship, and Randy Macho Man Savage knocked Yokozuna down, and he delivered his elbow. And this was going to be Macho Man Randy Savage was going to become a three-time WWE champion. 1, 2, Crush interferes and breaks up the count, causing a disqualification and stuff like that. And this continues to go on, this feud with Macho Man Randy Savage and Crush. And then a week before WrestleMania, to that March to WrestleMania special on the USA Network, President Jack Tunney bars Randy Macho Man Savage from the building. But before he's thrown out of the building, Vince McMahon conducts an interview with Macho Man Randy Savage and Macho Man was saying he lost. It was a great interview for Savage, probably one of his last great interviews in the WWE, saying that he was not going to be conceded. He was going to be a three-time WWE champion, but Crush took it away from him and stuff. He's been backstabbed before and stuff like that, and it divorced Miss Elizabeth. Some of the things he was mentioning being backstabbed before is probably directed at Hulk Hogan, but they couldn't say his name. And then when WrestleMania 10 comes around, Crush wrestled Randy Macho Man Savage in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and this was a great match, probably an underrated match on WrestleMania 10 and stuff. And it was a match that, a lot of pinfalls and stuff, but they got Crush and Randy got back before the 60 seconds, but eventually Macho Man beat Crush easily, and Crush couldn't make it back into the ring in the 60 seconds allowed, so Macho Man Randy Savage won that match, and this culminated the feud. This feud was probably an underrated feud in the WWE at the time. This was probably to get Crush over as a heel and probably have something for Macho Man Randy Savage to do, because he basically was a commentator at this time, and this was a good way for him to be in a feud to get Crush over as a heel and stuff like that. I'm very surprised that the WrestleMania 10 match never popped up on either of the Macho Man's DVDs. It's a good match, that match between Randy Macho Man Savage and Crush at WrestleMania 10. It was a great match, but WWE maybe forgot to put it on the DVDs at Macho Man, but you could see it on a WrestleMania DVD of WrestleMania 10. I rate the Crush versus Macho Man Randy Savage feud in the WWE probably one of the top 10 feuds in the WWE around the early to mid 90s. It was great, and it was probably the last great feud Macho Man Randy Savage was in the WWE, and the last thing of importance he did in the ring before he left for WCW. And that's about it on that. I'll be back tomorrow, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. 3 more video blogs. Tomorrow I'm going to do the top 10 greatest Atlanta Braves players of all time. And there's going to be a second one I'm going to do about Mike Greenwell, former Red Sox outfielder. And the third video blog of the night, of the day, will be about, I'll tell you what it is on my final Facebook status, because I don't know what it is right now. And soon, very soon, there'll be video blogs about the history of Starrcade, NWA years and WCW years. Julie Broughton, Local 6, and Heidi Lee Pratt definitely getting blogs in the near future. Good night, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.